welcome to Just Talk Funerals with me, Jason Threadgold.
And me, Nicola Threadgold.
Just Talk Funerals is all about the funeral industry, the people that work alongside us, and an insight into what we do.
We will have some special guests along the way, sharing their experiences and how their professions overlap with what we do.
So get yourselves comfy, grab yourselves a cuppa, and let's get into today's episode of
Just Talk Funerals.
Hi and welcome to our next episode of Just Talk Funerals. Today we're going to be talking about funeral costs and help that's out there for people with funeral costs. So, Nicola, we read in the newspaper, the media, Sun Life always produce these figures for the UK saying that the average cost of dying is £9,800 nowadays. So, we're going to talk about why funerals cost so much, what support's available from either the government, charities, local authorities, and how families can reduce the costs without losing the dignity element of the service.
Interesting.
Okay. So the first bit we're going to jump into is the average funeral cost. So it said there £9,800. So people are instantly thinking now that funeral directors are going to charge you £9,800 for a funeral, when that's not the case, really, is it?
No.
So an average funeral, we all probably know, can cost anywhere between sort of £4,000 or £5,000. But then you add on all the other things in somebody's estate when it calls this cost of dying element that gets you to nearer the £10,000 mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like professional fees, like solicitors, banking charges, anything that can do with administering somebody's estate. Memorials, catering, there's loads of things that sort of bump that figure, and that's where they get to this £9,800 mark.
I think it depends also whether you're having a burial or a cremation, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So if you had in a memorial on there, say for instance, you went for a traditional grave, you put a memorial on there with a curb set on there, you're adding on a few £1,000s just for that element of granite or marble, whatever you're using as well, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Direct cremation, we know that's on the rise. Currently sits at about 20% of the funeral market, and it's predicted in the next 20 years that's going to reach around about the 50% mark. These figures I don't deny. I think it probably will happen like that, but I think what will happen is something else in sort of the interim, that's sort of bridging that thing, but 50% for direct funerals. And we're going to talk a little bit about government support. So ways in which the government can assist with paying towards a funeral, what allows you to put in a claim for that, and what sort of criteria you have to fit into, and also local authorities. Yeah. So a lot of people probably don't know that there's a facility out there through the local authority where they can provide a funeral service, but it tends to be the really sort of last element, really, but we'll cover that in a minute. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about charities and churches and how there's money out there that you can access to help pay towards funeral costs. And we're just going to have a little bit of a debate about that as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot to cover in this one,
really,
there is. Isn't there?
There is.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all then, let's have a look at the government and local authority and their role in terms of helping with funeral costs. So, do you think government support goes far enough to help families in need? So we're talking here about funeral expenses and bereavement support payments.
Okay, bereavement support payments I think are a great idea, especially for like a married couple or people that have children, and then it's an ongoing thing for anywhere up to 18 months. Yeah. The initial payment towards a funeral costs, I think this is something where, I mean, over the years it's been pretty fixed. It's not moved a lot. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this 30 odd years now. I don't think it's moved more than about £300 in all the time that I've been doing this. So I think they need to catch up with what the cost of a funeral is. I think the government are behind with that, much as they're doing all the research on us when it comes to assistance in a monetary sense for those that qualify. I think it's a little bit behind where it needs to be. Yeah.
Now, we talk about qualifying, and we've talked very briefly there about bereavement support payments. Can you just enlighten the listeners a little bit more into what that is, because there's maybe people listening that don't actually know what that is.
Okay, so those that qualify, so you need to be able to be claiming a certain type of benefit or certain benefits,
Yeah.
or you need to be under a certain age and married. So, say for instance, your traditional working family, one of you passes away who's under retirement age, you can put in for a grant to help pay towards the funeral.
Yep.
And you can also get assistance if you have children for up to 18 months afterwards. So you get a monthly payment.
Yeah.
So you get a one-off payment at the start as like a bulk payment. It used to be called a death grant years ago. Nowadays it's a bulk payment, and then you get 18 months staggered payments to help you kind of get back on your feet a little bit.
Yeah.
And it can get up into the many thousands by the time you get to the end of the 18 months. But not everybody knows that this is a facility that can be accessed. So sadly, if you were a single person or you had no dependents, you weren't necessarily qualified for the same sort of benefits.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go on what the person who's passed away was claiming. Say, for instance, they were getting certain benefits.
No.
That's irrelevant at the point where that person passes away. It goes on the surviving people. So the people that are left behind, what do they claim? What's their marital status, dependency? And there's a lot of sort of factors that come into that. But it's always worth looking at it with your funeral director as well, because they can go through the pack with it. It's quite a lengthy pack. And see whether you do qualify or whether you don't qualify. And that might have a bearing on what you then or how you then work the funeral service.
You'd like to think, though, when the funeral director meets with a family to arrange that funeral, as they start to ask the questions, they would start to identify these people that would be able to claim for these sorts of benefits, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's key questions as part of your, I'm not going to call it a script, but as part of your conversation with a family, that you would start to pick up on certain things.
Yeah.
And then it's your responsibility, I feel, as the funeral director,
definitely,
to highlight these things to people.
Yeah.
Because if there's money out there, I'm not trying to say rob the state, but if there is money there available and it's been put there for a reason, then why would you not access it if it's there? It's there to help you.
They're entitled, aren't they? It's money that they are entitled to.
It's much like benefits for people that are poorly and sick and single family. There's all sorts of benefits through the state that you can access, but go unclaimed. So there's a lot of money unclaimed.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and should funerals be subsidised in the same way like healthcare is? I mean, this is something that's been a debate over the years, hasn't it? Given that, death is inevitable.
That's tricky because at what point do you stop? I think when you say subsidised healthcare, we're talking about the NHS here, are we?
Yeah.
Okay, so people will utilise that for their benefit and their wellness. I get that. Some people take out private medical. I think it's very much the same. So if there's a facility there that you could access, I guess, would it get abused? Would it be something that everybody would be entitled to?
Yeah.
I don't know, because if you look at mortality rates around the country, what would that do to everybody's tax if you had to subsidise every single funeral across the UK?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then, crikey, this is starting a debate. You then get into like the estate planning side of things. And would people be claiming that money to keep more money for themselves through the estate of the loved one?
There's lots of wrangle.
Yeah, that's really contentious,
I think we'll leave that one to just debate in the background and see where that gets to.
Yeah, we'll research that one.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And our local authority public health funerals, do you think they're dignified enough? I know we're going to talk about them in a little bit more detail in a second. Or do you think councils should do more to make them more compassionate as well as affordable?
Are we talking in the sense of if somebody passes away with no relatives, no estate?
Yeah.
I think the council do all they can.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to expand on it in a minute, I think. But I think they're doing what they need to do. I don't think it should be a carte blanche service that's, again, offered out to everybody. And I don't think they're as impersonal as you would think. People used to call them paupers funerals. There isn't such a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's still a dignified service.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it can be an awful lot more than an actual direct service. So yeah, I think they're on the right wavelength when it comes to them.
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously, as changes have happened over the years, you know, when we start to talk about community-led initiatives like crowdfunding, benevolent funds, do you think they fill a gap? Do you think they're a good idea in terms of funerals?
I think they do, and I think what you tend to find is when people set up crowdfunding, it kind of fits into this younger person service a lot of the time, where somebody in the community sort of thinks we need to help these people.
Yeah.
They're going to be hit with all these costs that weren't expected. It could be tragedy that's caused it.
Yeah.
And they set up a crowdfunding platform for it. It's usually done for them.
Yeah.
I know occasionally I've seen it where the families have done it themselves, and they usually get a really good response to them, way beyond what a funeral will ever cost. I mean, to the point where it will help that family a little. I mean, it's never going to bring the person back,
No.
but it'll help that family get back on the feet financially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a really good idea, the crowdfunding. You know, you see then a whole community, and probably even people that this family or, you know, whoever's set that up don't even know, have come together to give some sort of financial monies to help that family. And I think that's, you know, and I think people probably would look at that more than actually giving a donation to a charity, because they can see that money is going directly to people that really need help at that time.
Yeah, and I agree. And I must admit, I've seen one recently where I don't know whether the person knows the person that's passed away, but I saw somebody had put £1,000 into one the other day, and this one was into the tens of thousands that are going to support this person's family. I don't know whether they know them or not, but that's a massive thing to do, and it's a great way of helping them out.
Yeah.
And to some people, £1,000 is a lot of money.
Absolutely.
But to others, it might just be, well, I'd rather not have a holiday. I'd rather give it to them because they're going to get more benefit from it and they're going to need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so no, I'm all for it. I'm pro that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So what about around, should there be a legal cap on funeral costs, similar to rules around payday loans and financial products? You know, we see how funerals are becoming more expensive. Obviously, this isn't usually to do with the actual funeral directors, it's local authority, the prices that they're hacking onto cremations, burials. So do you think there should be a legal cap on funeral costs?
Not on the whole thing, I don't think. On certain elements of it, I think there maybe should be a cap on it so that people can't be overcharged for elements where it can be done for an awful lot less. But I don't think you can dictate to somebody that's grieving what they can spend on a service. No. I think they should be given the freedom, and equally as funeral directors, we should give them the options at both ends of the scale.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody were to pass away who had no next of kin, so I know we've spoke with Laura in a prior episode, we talked about dying intestate. If you died intestate and say you didn't have a great deal of money, or you did have an awful lot of money, if you got no relatives whatsoever, it would be up to the state to dictate what type of service is held.
Yeah.
So the Treasury solicitor would make that decision that whatever you were worth in life, you have a funeral service that's befitting that status.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could go from having just a direct service up to all the bells and whistles and a royal carriage going into Westminster. It depends. But yeah, I don't think you should cap it, because that then takes away families' choice. But elements of the funeral service, I think, should be, if not capped, certainly monitored.
Yeah, okay. And how much would you say, in terms of a funeral, is about the deceased wishes, and how much is about the living? And should the cost influence that?
I mean, an awful lot of it is about the living. We know this, and an awful lot of a funeral service can be seen as theatre, if you want. So this is why we're all about being proactive with pre-planning. I mean, whether you prepay for a funeral or not is irrelevant, but pre-planning your funeral.
Yeah.
So you're getting down on paper or digitally how you want your service to be,
Yeah.
and then making sure that your executor knows that's how you want it,
Yeah.
and you kind of stick with that theme.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're giving free rein to those people that are left behind to make decisions for you. And the best will in the world, they might
Be the right one.
no, it's guesswork. Unless you've
Yeah.
told them,
Yeah.
they're going to do what they think is right for you, or they may well do what's right for them.
Yeah.
So it's always best get something down somewhere, or let somebody know your wishes that you trust that's going to fulfil it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about funeral expense payments in England and Wales. Obviously, we're not going to talk about Scottish laws, are we? Because they're very different, aren't they?
Yes, they are, yeah.
So we're sort of looking at England and Wales, aren't we?
Yep.
So what is a government benefit that helps with the funeral costs for those who are qualifying on benefits? So in terms of who can claim?
Okay. So you'll need to be claiming, there's lots of different benefits that you can be claiming. Things like, what was the DLA, Disability Living Allowance? I think you
Yep.
call it PIP now. You've got things like job seekers, income support, pension credits even. Gives you the flexibility to be able to make this claim. Now, it's
Yep.
never guaranteed, and a lot will depend on what other monies are in the estate, whether there's insurance policy, prepayment policies, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
But if you're genuinely in a situation where you need to get assistance from the government, they'll pay anywhere up to £1,000 towards additional costs, funeral director costs, so that'll contribute towards that element. They'll pay for either your cremation or your burial. So if you're going for a burial, they will actually pay for the whole grave and the first excavation of that grave as well, so that's included. And I mean, that has a massive bearing on your religion. So I think a lot of people, when there's hardship there, are nervous about putting in a claim, or nervous that they're only going to be able to get a cremation paid for. But we can sort of reassure people that
Yeah.
if it is your faith and you need a burial, then they will cover the cost of the burial ground and the interment fee as well. And then there's other little bits included. I think they pay a small allowance towards travel, or a very small amount towards flowers on a service. On an average cremation service, I mean, they'll be paying anywhere up to sort of £1,800, £2,000 towards that, and on a burial service they could pay anywhere up to sort of £3,500. Only if you qualify, though.
Yeah.
So you need to put in the claim, and it can be quite an arduous process waiting for an answer.
Yeah.
Sadly, this department in the government have got a bit of a backlog. They always have got a bit of a backlog, and you can be waiting a few months before you get a decision made. I mean, they will get to it as quick as they can, but you can imagine they're getting bombarded with these absolutely every day from all over the country.
Yeah. Okay. So the advice is, if you are on benefits, is around speaking with your funeral director, because obviously you could be eligible for the help and support.
Yeah, and you might not know it, and you might think that you don't fit into that category, but through conversation, your funeral director will be able to find out whether you are, whether you aren't eligible, and then they'll help you put in your claim as well. And it's always best to put your claim in as soon as possible if you're in that process, because you're going to be hit with things like deposits for funerals and time frames when funerals need to be paid by. Again, it's worth having the conversation with your funeral director if you are claiming. Make them aware of that. Don't be a surprise to the funeral director when they've sent you a bill afterwards. Let them know that that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. Okay. Right, so let's talk around public health funerals. I think it's really important for us to educate people on what a public health funeral is. So, first of all, what is a public health funeral?
Okay, so I'm going to split this because there's kind of two sorts.
Yep.
So public health funeral in the context of a council, if you like. So if somebody's passed away in a private residence or on the street, somewhere away from a hospital environment, and there's no family come forward, there's nobody that's prepared to pay for a funeral service or get involved in it at all, then the local authority has an obligation, and I'll use that word obligation, to facilitate a funeral service, again following that person's faith. So this can be either a cremation or a burial. People will use this, and I still hear it used now, this word paupers funeral. It's not a paupers funeral.
No.
It's exactly the same type of service. It just means that the council will be the ones that will be paying for the funeral service. But what the council will try and do is they'll try and find out whether that person's left any form of estate at all. So if nobody steps forward, whether the person's currently in the care of a funeral director or in a care home, something along those lines, then the local authority would step in. They usually have a nominated funeral director that's sort of tendered for that position with them. They'll get them to carry out the funeral service in the same way. You get exactly the same treatment. You get the same last offices. You dress the same, in the same coffins. There's even an announcement put in the newspaper. There's no difference apart from the fact that the council will be paying for it. But the council will need to try and recoup their costs. So they will look at whether they've left any form of estate. So if they've got a property, they'll go into that property. And if there's things there that can be sold, can be seen as part of an estate, then they will claim them to try and recoup the money. The other side to this is what not a lot of people know is exactly the same principle, but if you've passed away in a hospital, then the hospital have an obligation to pay for a funeral service as well. Very, very rarely does this happen nowadays, but they do have this obligation under the Environmental Health Act that they have to carry out a funeral service if nobody steps forward. Nobody can be strong-armed into taking jurisdiction for a funeral. And if you haven't got the means, all we would say that is if you are connected to somebody that you are thinking might go down this route, if you then go and register that person's death, you've kind of taken jurisdiction. So we'd encourage you not to do that if this is the route that you're going to be following. But all I would say is be mindful that if you are stepping back and you think it's for financial gain, then the authorities will step in and seize part of that estate to cover the costs of the funeral service.
Excellent. Okay. I was just reading here as well, recent trends, around 4,400 public health funerals in England between 2022 and 23 were actually up from 3,900 the year before. So they are rising, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's coming down to money and people's ability to pay. If you step forward and you take jurisdiction for a funeral, 99% of the time you're going to end up sadly being the person that has to sort of financially contribute towards that funeral.
And the cost to councils throughout the UK nearing 6 million annually. Money, isn't it?
It is a lot of money, and again, where does that money come from? So again, that's a tricky one, isn't it? But it is a facility that's there if needed.
Okay, so that now brings us on to, and this is where we've done quite a bit of work over the years, haven't we, in terms of additional support for people. And I think some people have been a bit surprised by some of the findings that we've sort of looked at over the years, in terms of, where can we help people get support financially, and just support in general, doesn't it? But one of the ones that we've used a couple of times over the years has been the British Gas Energy Trust, hasn't it? Where basically they can provide grants to ease financial burden, hardship, can't they?
They can.
And it will help with funeral-related expenses. To the extent that you don't actually have to be a British Gas customer, do you?
No, I was going to say that actually.
Which surprises me, but you just obviously have to give them some details around the deceased, and obviously if the estate covers the funeral costs, but the fact that they will actually give out grants, but it does say here that they do not grant money for funeral expenses that have already been paid.
Yeah.
So it has to be within your current time span of you having your funeral, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I'll add to this. I don't know whether you was going to say this or not, though, but it's not something that they set aside a certain amount per year.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a never-ending pot of money.
No.
They put aside that, so it can be really dependent on when you pass away as to whether this one's available to you or not.
Yeah, but we've definitely helped a couple of families in terms of the British Gas Energy Trust, haven't we?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, they're very helpful, actually.
Yeah, excellent. The next sort of support we've sort of looked at is that the general employer benefits the group death in service insurance. So you do get quite a few UK employers that will have a group death in service sort of benefit. So that's something for people to look at, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you tend to find that's them people that are working for larger organisations.
Yeah.
National companies, things like that. I wouldn't expect somebody that has like a market stall or a sweet shop or something to be having that kind of facility.
No.
But certainly some of your bigger players would have that benefit for people.
Yeah, okay. And then we found through our own research that there's quite a few charities linked to professions and industries, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
So if the deceased worked in a specific trade or a specific industry or even a union, they may offer up charitable grants and awards towards funeral bills.
Yeah, we're not saying that they'll pay the whole funeral bill for you, but they may help you contribute towards a funeral or give you benefits that could help you away from the funeral as well. It's always worth, again, having these conversations about the person, and your funeral director will be picking up on these sorts of things when you're having conversations about what they've done in the past, what they did, were they ex-military, things like that. Where to pinpoint you if they feel that you need this further assistance or if you ask for that assistance. I mean, I could reel off loads of them to you. Should I reel off a few of those?
Yeah, do, because there are a lot and some are very unusual, aren't they? When you start looking and you think, actually, wow, you know, some of the support that you can get that probably people wouldn't have necessarily thought of.
No, I mean, there's the retail trusts. That's anybody that's worked in retail. They'll give you emotional grants and they'll help contribute towards funerals if need be. Work-related charities and benevolent funds, there's so many of these out there that are easily accessible to everybody. I mean, examples of some of these is like insurance charities for anybody that's ever worked within the insurance industry. The Rainy Day Trust, this is for workers in the home improvement industry. Road Haulage Association, they have a benevolent fund. Transport Benevolent Fund for people that work on public transport. Timber Trades Benevolent Society, who'd have thought that? So anybody that's worked in the timber industry, by whatever means, then they could be involved. Teaching staff trusts, care workers charities, veterans and military linked support. Now there's quite a few of these when you start looking. And I think you'll hear a lot of them, things like the RAF Benevolent Fund, SAFA and things like that. There's loads out there. And they actively get involved from day one. I mean, if you go to them straight away, they'll send out a support worker, support officer, they'll visit the family, they'll look at what they need, and it might well just be, well, we'll pay for the funeral and we'll give you this, or you might not be entitled because of whatever reason, but they really do help. Public sector funeral support, who'd have thought you got that? So it's called Finders International Funeral Fund. So that's anybody that's worked within the public sector. But I'll carry on. I mean, there's a few here. Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution. This grants family in crisis, including bereavement support. Electrical Industries Charity. The Groceries Aid. The Fisherman's Mission. ABF, the Soldiers Charity. Transport Benevolent Fund. Insurance Charities, Rainy Day Trust. We've mentioned a few of them. The RHA Benevolent Fund for road transport industry. Automotive sector, I guess, if you want to call it that, something called BEN. They offer holistic support and financial support. The list could go on and on and on. We have catalogues of all these things that we've put together over the years that show us how we can access funds, not always just to pay towards the funeral, but to pay towards anything that you need following or prior to a funeral as well. So the money is out there if you want to try and access it. And lean on your funeral directors. They should know how to pinpoint you or get you directly to these people.
I think it's worth just saying as well that, you know, we're not saying that there is a guarantee that you would get financial help with
no,
any of
definitely
these.
not, no.
These are areas that we've looked at. Some of these we have had help with for families, but like the gas one, you know, it's probably not a pot that is always full, is it? You know, it's probably under a time
It will
span
get depleted after a certain amount of
absolutely.
time.
But definitely worth checking out, just in case there are some support, you know, areas there that will help people.
Yeah, for the sake of making a phone call or a letter, then it's worth doing it to see what benefit could be to you and your family.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think the last few things there. So we've got things like the child funeral charity.
Yeah, so that helps families with for children under 16. Again, that's another area that we've helped families with, isn't it? SANS, which again is something that we do help a lot with, isn't it? In terms of the stillbirth and neonatal death charity. Again, that will help support families after the loss of a baby, and they do a lot of support locally. We've been involved with them, haven't we? The Royal British Legion. They obviously help families with those that have lost people through the armed forces. And then there's another one called Down to Earth, which is part of the Quaker Social Action Group, which offers support to arrange affordable funerals or manage costs for low-income families.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the key learning from this really is chat with your funeral director, especially if you're...
Yeah.
People call it funeral poverty.
And it's not.
It's an awful word to call it funeral poverty.
No.
But it's not. It's gaining assistance where you maybe need it at some point in your life.
Yeah.
And don't ever feel embarrassed to ask the questions.
No.
Because we're not there to judge people.
No, we
We're
want to help.
Yeah, we do. We want to help. Every funeral director should be out there wanting
Yeah.
to help people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can gain that assistance by looking further afield and trying to bring finance into it as well.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a little bit of research on our part, doesn't it? If it's something we've not come across, but you know we're happy to do that. Hence why we've now got all this information, because over the years we've put all this together, haven't we, to aid families and to help them. You know, when they come to us, we want to be able to help them.
Yeah, I think sort of on the back of this, we'd encourage people to, if they need to, sort of reach out to us. If it's something that you're worried about, feel embarrassed about, don't be.
No.
Come to us, let us talk to you about it, and we'll find the assistance you need.
Yeah.
But I think for today, we'll leave it at that. You know where we are, and see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Just Talk Funerals.
We really care about what you think. We'd love your feedback on the subjects raised today, or maybe you have a question you would like us to talk about in a future episode. You can contact us by emailing podcast@threadgoldfunerals.com.
If you'd like to know more about what we do and the services we offer, then please head to jasonthreadgoldfuneraldirector.com. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time.